We are going to continue our theme of Lightning, Bitcoin Lightning in particular. And yeah, we are jumping to the last panel. I believe this is the last panel of Plan B Forum 2025 in Lugano. And we've got some mega brains again. Got some absolute geniuses on the side stage here. So yeah, how are you guys feeling? Are you all right? Yeah? So? Okay, cool. We've also got Off-Grid Steve, our headliner for today, closing out the what's this stage called? P2P stage. I'm still with that, I promise. Okay, so we're going from Lightning Labs to Breeze to Synonym. This panel is bringing together some of the engineers, some of the architects shaping how Lightning actually works, and some of the guys who are best at talking about it. That one's you, Odell. There he is. Cool. Fantastic. I'm not going to do any more talking. You guys have had enough of me. So let's just put our hands together. Welcome Lalo, welcome Roy, welcome Christian, welcome John Carvalho, and the one and only Odell to the stage. Take it away, guys.
If you guys want to call Sats Bitcoin, I don't really give a shit. We can call it whatever we want. Stay humble, stack Bitcoin. Yeah, you need to be under your name, except for me. I'm over here. So we're talking about inside Lightning implementations. I think what's more interesting. But raise your hand if you've used Lightning. Nice. And we have some people in here that have never used Lightning.
I use Spark.
You use Spark. Okay.
Somehow I knew that.
I mean, okay. Well, I mean, Spark.
Not Lightning.
But they're using Lightning swaps.
Lightning adjacent.
Okay.
Dependent.
Everything is Lightning.
Dependent is good, yeah.
Lightning is everything.
Okay, let's start. We'll start with Roy since he's very excited to be on this panel today. Raise your hand if you use Breeze Wallet. Look at that, Roy. Oh yeah, I've actually used it as well.
I don't even use the Breeze wallet anymore.
He only uses Breeze SDK. So when you think about Lightning for the end user, how do you think about Lightning, and how should the end user think about it?
It shouldn't. They shouldn't. Like users don't need to know anything about Lightning. They need just to pay or send value using Bitcoin, and the underlying implementation isn't really something they should care about.
Until they have to.
Until they have to. It's our job to make it as seamless as possible, as censorship resistant as possible, as permissionless as possible, as easy to ease the experience as much as possible. But what users that use the internet know what TCP/IP is? No. So it's the same. It's an implementation detail.
Some do.
Some do. The geeks do.
No. I think you're right. I mean, nice. If the abstraction that we present to our end users is leaky, then that's on us, right? Then we could have done a better job at preventing them from needing that information in the first place. So I like to say that that people are free to choose whatever wallet they want. They just need to have all of the trade-offs. And it's up to us to come up with a combination of various systems that makes as good user experience as possible.
I even hate the term wallet. Like 2 years ago, I went into one of my crusades against abolishing the term wallet, and I failed miserably.
What should we call it?
Keychain?
Sorry?
Keychain? What?
No, I want kind of the fact that you have a wallet and you have like a specific experience that you need to go through in order to interact with Bitcoin is horrendous in terms of user experience. I want it to be. I don't think the app should be named based on the function of the app. So it should be a payment app. It should be.
So Wallet isn't there to communicate to users about what it is. It's for us to feel better because we are so much better at using Bitcoin than mortals.
Yeah, maybe. That's why not a lot of people use that.
But we can't actually hide Lightning from the user yet. What? So in other words, this is, well, without lying to them or masking all of the things we're exposing them to, like it's not actually seamless. There are moments when they have to be exposed to the limits of Lightning, even the limits of the other things we're piling onto Lightning. The complexity exposes itself eventually, so then you have to start saying, oh, let me try to explain all of Lightning to you all of a sudden when you have this one problem where you really need to understand what's happening. But how are you going to do that? You're not going to. You're just going to lie or hide it and just say error or you need more money.
So, but John, how do you handle it? How do you handle it with BitKit?
I wouldn't call it lying either. I mean, like, if you abstract away some of the complexity by automating some stuff, by pushing the boundaries of what we can sort of take on as responsibility away from the users such that they don't have to learn this stuff because it's handled automatically, I wouldn't call that lying.
Everyone is
it's
lying.
It's only that at
Let me give you an
edges
example.
the complexity shines through, and I agree with that. But I think there is still room for us to push the limits of how much we can sort of solve for the user.
But that's also agreeing with me. We haven't done it yet. In other words, they're still exposed to light. We can't actually hide it.
It's very future
We can't hide it
looking, though,
confidently.
When you use a fintech app and the payment fails, are users exposed to the complexities of the fiat system? And you say, no, you say error. So
that ACH error reply did not originate from the point that I expected it to originate from.
Well, if our standard is banking, then I agree with you.
Yeah. I don't know. What the panel is about, the math? Like what?
So, like, take the example of Liquid. Like, if you use Liquid for swaps with Lightning, like one of your previous Nodeless, I think, or whatever configuration, you can't actually communicate the trade-offs that Liquid is exposing to them. You can't say, "Oh, this is a federation, and the government might be able to shut it down," and but it's all cool. Don't worry about it. Error.
Yes.
You know, like.
Yes, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I guess the goal should be there should be
Users
just fewer
don't care.
errors. There's less to explain that at that point.
Well, if they don't care, they're just using trust, and you don't need all the complexity at all.
100%.
So let's remove it.
Okay.
That's what Spark gets you.
Remove Lightning, remove Arc, remove Spark.
That's what I'm trying to do.
I mean, you can do that right now,
I'm not trying to use
right?
the terms that people don't understand. I'm not trying to expose the underlying.
No, I mean literally remove it, not hide it.
So what are you going to use instead then?
Okay, so what's the value proposition of Bitcoin? That's your question.
Right, in other words, Bitcoin is the trustless thing. All the things we're building on top are trusted with complexity.
No, they're trust minimized. I disagree.
No, they're all made out of a shared UTXO that is a trusted arrangement.
Bitcoin is also only trustless if you understand the intrinsics of Bitcoin itself, right?
Everything is trusted.
We can just go
The
down
spectrum
more
is like
turtles.
Bitcoin over here, and then Lightning over here, and Staking over here.
Oh, yeah, I'm all for simplifying protocols such that we can again explain the trade-offs to our end users and have them have the ability of making an informed decision. But I also agree that currently it's kind of not the good situation, and it's really hard to communicate those trade-offs as well. So go L2, I guess.
I don't want to warp the panel too much, but my argument is simply, if we have to use trust, that will never compete with the things that only use trust. So in other words, you're going to have complexity plus
There's
trust.
value proposition. There's a distinct value proposition for trust minimized solution.
In terms of access.
Okay, so let's be more explicit about it. The entire crypto game, and Bitcoin is part of the crypto game, is regulatory arbitrage. And trustless or trust minimized solution are part of this regulatory arbitrage game. And there's clear advantage and clear user experience benefit you can attain with having trust minimized solutions.
There are other forms of regulatory arbitrage that do not require the complexity.
Okay, so
What?
people will
Do you have
use
some
them
examples
instead
of your vision here?
Well, I don't want to distort the whole panel. It's not about me.
No, it is. It is.
Do it.
Oh, it very much is now.
This is fun. It's
So you
5
want me to
p.m.
just
Let's
describe
fight.
what I would propose? Sure. So take the example of Bitrefill, right? Bitrefill is trusted. They're using credit, but they don't have the same regulatory exposure as a bank or this kind of thing.
Yeah, because they're using the only loophole that exists in the fiat system.
Closed loop credit is allowed.
Yes.
Right? And so imagine a peer-to-peer system made out of just credit. In other words, I issue
you're
credit to
relaunching peer credit. Basically, you're relaunching peer credit.
No, nothing to do with pair. Well, still credit, but not pair. But the idea is basically that you can establish attribution to your peers based off of the route quality. And so when the route fails, you basically reroute to a higher scoring route. And you're just constantly scoring routes and scoring peers and to provide routing for coordination, much like you would do with like interbank settlement or any type of large international settlement. It's all trusted in the end. And what you're doing is you're narrowing it down, the selection of who you're doing the routing with, using a web of trust. So first you decide the peers that you're going to include in the set, and then you narrow it down by the quality of the route you're trying to reach. Or you can just ask the person for credit. And you just use this as a coordination layer for anything. Bitcoin on chain, Ethereum, bananas, Netflix subscriptions, it doesn't really matter.
And let's see if it will succeed.
So I'd very much like that
Well, it
web
works
of
like this
trust that
today,
actually
it's
works and scales to that size, because every single one of the web of trust proposals that I've seen fell apart at some point. But
I've never seen an actually attempt to deploy web of trust. I've seen people do, the closest thing was the Bitcoin OTC web of trust that people used to trade in the early days, but this was so niche on IRC with 200 people, and it just went away.
The issue is that trust is hard to bootstrap, basically. That's why we want trust minimized systems, because trust is hard to bootstrap in the first place, right? Trust minimized systems, you can start with minimal trust and eventually bootstrap it over time, basically. But you as an entrant, you don't actually need to know anyone in the system at that point. You don't need identities. You don't need prior knowledge of them. That's why Bitcoin is beautiful, basically. That's why Lightning works. That's why it's decentralized.
So you're arguing that first we should start with trust minimized and a lot of complexity in order to establish a trust.
Well, I mean, I think you're getting too caught up in basically the complexity. I think it's more about what it enables the individuals to offer, basically, the user experience we can build on top of that, and actually the distribution there, basically. The web of trust stuff, that sounds complex as well. How do I know the individual? What's the difference between medium trust versus high trust? How do I negate them?
System.
Yeah, reputation systems.
Well, but the difference is the user is the one in control of that system. The user gets to decide how they apply the trust.
But how do I know who? You're going. That's
problem
why
is
we
that
Bitcoin.
are
Because I
you
don't know
shifting
trust.
the decisions onto the user now?
How do I know which Spark Federation to choose? How do I know which mint to choose?
This is the
How do I know
Lightning
which side
implementation
chain
panel,
to choose?
right?
That's why we need to tell a story. Basically, Bitcoin isn't a technology. Bitcoin is a brand. We're using the Bitcoin brand in order to implement this trust minimized solution, and it works. And launch your
But it's just
thing, and
trust.
let's see who wins.
And then also it doesn't even scale in the end. So it's
It does.
how
scale.
does it scale?
It does scale.
I mean,
What
why
is
are we
Bitcoin?
talking
For you,
about?
Bitcoin is UTXO? For you, Bitcoin is UTXO?
Yeah.
Okay, for me, it's not. Bitcoin is a brand.
So it's either Bitcoin or it's not.
So why aren't you both implementing your things, and we use Lightning to interoperate, and we'll all be happy?
Sounds good to me.
So
I mean, there is
That's what we're doing, by the way.
no,
eCash.
none of these things can
eCash is
stop
one of
the
the
other thing from
solutions that
happening.
is-
there is very little value in discussing these things in a vacuum. Let's actually implement them and try them out and see
I
what
agree.
survives.
Well,
but,
no.
Let's also give users all of the information to make an informed decision about which system they should actually be using for their requirement.
Yeah,
When
we're
are we
not
going to make an
hiding.
informed decision about
We're
what to
not
build?
hiding
And-
information, but we're not exposing the information in the user interface like many Bitcoin solutions do.
When are we going to use good information to choose what to build? Where to have our priorities?
The
There's only
developer-
so much
developer
speculative
should
investment
decide on
that
the
can be
best tool for the
distributed
job.
into creating
So
the systems.
my point wasn't that to imply that some people are hiding that information, but I was sort of trying to get to the point that we're really bad at talking about the objective trade-offs that people are faced when choosing one system over the other, and we should just get better at communicating these trade-offs, right?
No.
We are oftentimes too much in a marketing mode rather than being approachable by users who may be interested in these details.
No, we're suck at marketing. We're bad about going to mainstream users. We don't need to expose the complexities. We don't need to
If users want to have
If
access
user
to
want,
those,
they
to
can
those
ask
complexities,
ChatGPT whatever they want. We don't need to do that in the product, or in conference. We don't need Bitcoin conferences.
It just seems like your
thank you
goal
for
is...
your
I go home now. So we're done.
I don't need ChatGPT to have hallucinated protocols being presented to me.
Okay.
There's plenty of people doing that already.
Sergey that presented, that did a session an hour ago, he always say, we don't do VPN conferences, so why do we do Bitcoin conferences? Bitcoin should be a utility. People should use Bitcoin without education. Orange pilling stops working. So let's focus on building. Let's focus on providing utility. Let's focus on manifesting the value proposition of Bitcoin instead of talking about, I don't know, whatever technical.
But that's, I'm trying to do that too, right?
Okay,
And so I'm not trying to say, kill Bitcoin, forget about Bitcoin, let's go home, it's all over.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say, if we're going to choose, we have to choose how we are going to spend our time doing research, implementing things, creating products. And that means we have to do some kind of modeling of how things might play out in the future.
No, I hate that. other approach.
How do you choose then?
I take incremental steps. I think perfection is the enemy of progress. And I think we need to take small incremental steps in interfacing with reality and improve over time. I'm against kind of.
So you only want data-based decision.
I actually have to agree with Roy here because I
someone.
definitely am not a visionary as such, and I'm not really good with sort of projecting 10 years ahead. I sort of believe that we are oftentimes projecting past the context where our assumptions are valid, and so going for incremental steps while sort of still having a North Star of better use and access to Bitcoin, that is probably the way to go. We should be forward-looking, but looking at our next steps, not at the sort of last mile we're going to cross in 5 years.
Amen.
That's always hard because extrapolating that far into the future is almost impossible, and I at least never succeed.
But
maybe somebody else is better than I.
You do have to at least apply your protocol to how it would express in reality. Whether it's the future or at all or ever, you have to say, oh, what happens if the blocks are full and people can't afford to enforce their channel? What happens if we have so many things that are dependent on Lightning as a rail that will they express, will there be a cascade if somebody has to go for an exit all of a sudden? What happens when the price continually goes up and creates the balance that is that amount is now trusted in these layers? There's so many things that you know are true, and so you have to try to say, what will happen when I put this in people's hands?
And there is no contradiction in any of this, right? Because you are actually talking still about regions where the assumptions and basis on which we base our computations on and our extrapolations on are still valid. I'm saying that there is a boundary beyond which we just cannot see. There is a veil hiding the future.
We're all predicting the future all the time. It's just the further we go, the more we're being an idiot. And so I'm not saying predict the future into 10 years. I'm saying predict the future in the failure modes. Say what will happen when things don't go the way you think.
So challenge Bitcoin, please, John. Like, what's your problem with the trust minimized solutions that we're presenting?
With which one?
With whatever, I don't care.
I mean, I've been saying that the whole time, so give me a little more detail.
No, give me something that
I guess Lightning, that's the panel, the implementation was, and go to that.
No, I'm asking, I don't understand the specificity of your question.
Like why a credit-based system like you proposed is better than doing a trust minimized solution like we're implementing as a community, I mean.
I still don't understand, I'm sorry.
You're saying, why is what you're proposing as far as like this credit web of trust better than actually trying to make something a little more trust minimized?
It's too fast.
Sorry, 3 strikes you're out.
When do you think BitKit's going to support America, and why did you make that decision?
When do I think Bitcoin's going to support
No,
America?
BitKit. Can a U.S. user use?
Anybody
BitKit?
can use BitKit. The only thing that's limited in Americans is you can't buy a channel from us.
And why did you make that decision?
Because we are owned by Tether, and we don't want to do business in the U.S. jurisdiction.
And you think that's a trusted situation, right? I feel like this is valid to the conversation.
There's nothing trusted about what we're talking about. It's just Tether doesn't want risk exposure for this service. That's all.
And as a private company, that's a perfectly valid decision, I guess.
But I don't know what the topic is now.
I'm wondering myself too, yeah.
Well, no, I was just wondering, I think that is fundamental to the debate that you guys are having, which I'm enjoying. Is the LSP provider in that environment a trusted? Do they have legal exposure when they're providing that channel to the user, right? And I think from your actions, which I do not think are invalid, you clearly believe that there is a trusted environment there, that there is at least something that appears custodial, providing a channel to an American user, right?
No, it's that we actually think that, based on legal research, there is actual legal exposure to LSPs in the trustless sense. In other words, even if you do dual funding, this kind of thing, even if you do it as safe as you can, that still just the act of providing that service could end up having legal exposure. Because, for example, in Europe, we have limitations when we sell Lightning channels where you can't buy more than $1,000 of liquidity of a channel from us because it provides us legal exposure to, what's the new thing? Not Mika, but VASPs, and basically you have to have a license. And so I don't want to have compliance be part of what we do as a company. It's my decision, not Tether's. They let us get licenses if we want to do that, but that's not the kind of business I want to run, right? And so I don't want to work for the government. And so we limit, our limits are just based on how we can run without having to work for the government. That's it.
But do you not agree that that's the core of your concerns, I think, to this debate, right? Is that you're a trusted you feel that you're a trusted counterparty in this relationship, and I would say that
no. It's not that I feel I'm trusted.
You will be cast as one.
No, just in other words, we have a position where we can decide not to sell a channel to somebody.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
And so that means that if we don't, the government will never care what we do. If we do, they may care what we do. It's just simply we don't want that legal exposure. We don't think the upside, the risk, the reward is high enough for the potential risk. It's just not there. But as far as I think maybe a way to translate what you're getting at, when I'm complaining about that these complex things are also just adding trust in, what I mean is that, for example, to like make your argument, if the Bitcoin blocks are, so Bitcoin fees are $50 per transaction,
okay,
right? And 20% of our users' channels are only $50 in balance, right? That means that now we control all that money.
They can't settle on chain.
Right. It should be a waste of money, right? And we can just close that channel and take that money if we want to. So they have to trust us not to do that, right? And so that means that we could become legally exposed as trusted entities if Bitcoin stayed in a state where the fees were high. And now imagine the blocks get full, and now the fees are just even worse. People are going to wait forever. They say $100 a transaction. It stays that way for a month. None of the people that have that value or anything close to it, even $200 in there, can afford to enforce that channel anymore. They're all trusted at that point.
I think the issue is like you're presenting it in sort of like a binary matter, right? It's either trusted or not. But in reality, there's like a sliding gradient, right? And so in that example, like maybe in the future, if fees are super high, like people can actually have like a slightly different trust model, for that amount and basically for that user experience, right? But then as far as your thing around like blockchain, whatever else, the beauty of something that's permissionless basically, and anyone can join, is that anyone else can sell channels, right? If you don't want to sell them, anyone else can sell them. Anyone in this audience can basically sell those channels, right? If it was a fully trusted system that required bootstrapping on trust, you would be one of the only individuals to do so, right? So, trust minimized systems lower the barrier to entry for participants, basically, which makes the system stronger because there's less choke points, basically. And trust is not, it's not binary, basically. There's always a gradient, basically. It's always a gradient.
Well,
it's not just one or the other.
I mean,
it's functional. It's not a gradient. There's actual function to it.
It's a gradient. But I mean, it's a gradient because, for example, like if you were to plot, the fees over time compared to the attainable balance for a user, basically, that's a gradient, right? As the fees go up, maybe their attainable balance is lower, but it doesn't just go from like 1 to 0, basically, right?
Well, what goes from 1 to 0 is whether it's trusted.
So the optimal boundary is a gradient, but the rest is actually an area. You can always get a worse trade-off than on that gradient. So
Sure. You can pick either end, but I think you're just framing it as sort of like, because in the future possibly fees are going to be high in a particular instance, it's a trusted system today, but that's not the case.
So we usually see the discussion from the other side, right, about custody and how users are so bad and evil and choose custodial solutions. And I always say that that's actually failure on us. Picking up the argument of before. They chose that trade-off because not because they don't like not having to trust somebody, but because in their daily life, having a little bit of trust is just better than having to sort of read that 1,000-page tome that we expect them to read because only then they are true Bitcoiners, right? I think that's sort of the other side of the coin is that we should be working on improving these trade-offs and improving that gradient that we were talking about, and people should be free to. People are actually free, right? We can get upset all we want about somebody's choices of wallet. Oh, that's insecure, but why did they choose it? Because it actually worked for their use cases.
My concern is that doesn't seem to be the direction we're going in. Well, the direction we're going in is Lightning as Rails with all of these things connected to it, which is, like I mentioned how you can't explain the liquid trade-offs to people, but now you have, how do you explain all the trade-offs to all the people? Because any of those things could cause the situation to change, and we don't even know how it will express. And so it's just like, how do you say, oh, what we actually got you into is the situation where everybody's using this system too for other things, and we don't know what's going to happen when you want to use it. And
But
your flavor of it is not
You don't
this
need
flavor,
to
but not
explain
that
that.
flavor.
Like every web
Exactly.
server doesn't explain to the
That's Bitcoin.
users that they're running on AWS basically. AWS went down a few days ago, right? It just said not available. It didn't say, oh, well, there was a DNS issue in the propagation availability zone US East 1. They didn't say any of that, right? So I think so in that sense, like the products will basically abstract over the underlying platform to the degree that they can, and they don't have to explain everything below it, basically.
Right,
That's for the power users.
you can't. It's not responsible to abstract it when they're not informed about what the actual failure modes. No, it's what you actually expose them to in
People
reality.
use the internet every day and don't understand any of the failure modes around DNS.
Right, but we're
TCP.
trying to achieve trustlessness, not trust, right?
No, there's
Through
no
these
trustlessness.
systems.
It doesn't exist. You have trust minimum.
Trust minimized. I mean,
But
either
Bitcoin-
way.
Do you explain to users that use on-chain Bitcoin? Do you explain to them how the chain works and that they can?
I don't sell Bitcoin to users.
Oh, okay, but like a non. That's not how software I think should be developed. That's not how products should be developed. We need to interact with the market. It's okay to take risks. And
But why aren't we making the problem like, how do you choose which
I
mint?
choose.
How do you
I
choose which
for
spark?
them. I choose for them as a developer. My responsibility is to choose the best solution that I think is suitable for my users. Users don't care.
No, I think as a developer, my job is to offer an option and have the user make the decision themselves.
I want to choose. I want to be a benevolent dictator.
Yeah, the difference is like, Roy's packaging. He's packaging
can see in
solutions,
that,
right?
yes.
So that's the difference.
But in the end, they could enter a trusted mode, and they need to know that.
The world is trust. There's no trustless. It's just a
Well, but this isn't philosophy. We're talking about competing different designs.
competing. So I'm choosing always, like I tell you my mode of operation. I always choose the best tool for the job. I came from full.
Subjective.
Yes, of course, everything is subjective, so it's back to philosophy. But we started from a Breeze wallet that ran a full node on the mobile device. Then we moved to a Greenlight model where the node was in the cloud and the keys on the device. Then we switched to a Liquid model that actually abstract Liquid and gives a Lightning interface on top of Liquid. Now we're doing Spark. We'll do Arcade. We'll have a variety of choices, and there will be multiple application with different trade-offs, and users will use Lightning and they'll be happy.
If you're so good at choosing the best thing, why do you keep changing?
Because I'm choosing the best tool for the job, and technology changes.
The best tool is constantly changing.
Yes.
And so we should never support anything?
No, we always support the best tool.
Well,
at
do
any
you
given
do you
moment.
support Breeze Wallet anymore?
I do
you-
because I have thousands of users that don't want to leave it. So what can I do?
So I like that proposal of continuous improvement. It gives me a lot of work for infinity.
Yeah, we have jobs.
It's not very
No
efficient.
job hunting
it's not
for us.
really sustainable. It's not very efficient.
That's how software works.
That's how technology works. Like
in your
it's-
life, it's not if it's the least efficient way of producing something.
I'm trying to talk about real direct design trade-offs, and the responses tend to be expanding the context.
Yes, because we want to get geeky on the technical discussion, and you want to entertain the public.
I don't want to entertain anybody at all. I want to inform
I want to
them.
entertain myself. Like I find this, like you're presenting something very theoretical, very abstract. When you deliver a product to market, let's have a technical debate.
I don't need to have a conversation about my product. I can just criticize the actual design of the choices that
Okay,
we're
so
making.
you want to talk about something concretely, choose a topic, a technical topic, and let's discuss.
I already did. I tried mentioning how the elevating fees excludes people and makes it
I think
trusted.
that's
and
bullshit.
But it's true. It's not bullshit. It's objective. It's
No,
not subjective.
No, okay, so let's. I think it's
It's like
subjective.
literally true.
People-
Like there's
people
nothing.
can- people, no, it's John. Sorry, but
If I have $5 in a channel and the fee is $5, it's not trusted.
so what?
Oh, so I'm right. It is trusted.
It's trust minimized, but
No, it's
so-
trusted. It's not minimized.
trusted.
It's
not
just not
trusted.
mine anymore.
No, that's not true, John. And I think you're kind of it's a manipulation that you're doing because these 5 channels, even if the fees are high, the $5 can.
Lalo, do you agree? Am I saying something crazy here?
Well, I mean, obviously in that case, like yes, there is like a sort of a matrix of the fees on chain versus economic outputs, right? This is in protocol generally. That's why we have dust as well too, right? Like that is the case, but it's not just it's not some sort of like Armageddon sort of like ultimate thing where nothing else works. There are also ways to continue, right? So maybe the user will delay their confirmation on chain, basically, right? Maybe things will slow down a little bit. Maybe they'll have some other option, right? But things don't just stop and blow up there. There are ways to continue.
It's 2-week window,
their
right?
Bitcoin.
So as long as the fee stays that way for 2 weeks, it was true. Right?
No.
The longer it stays that way,
But who
the
will
more
close
true
the
it is.
channel, John, in your life,
But I mean, that's the exact reason why we are continuously expanding the scope of these projects. Is exactly because we see all of these issues.
None of the
and
projects can change this.
We try to address them.
But John,
Every
we
single
do
layer
our
of
best
construction
to
starts with a trusted multi-sig, and all of them have some form of window where you have to self-enforce and be able to do it alone.
can we go back to your use case of $5 fee spike? Okay, I have $5 on my Lightning channel, fee spike, I can close the channel. So what? I can use Lightning. Who will close the channel in that situation? No one.
The person who wants to steal from you, your counterparty. The government, when they come and say, hey, all of these people are trusted, so now you have to KYC.
Oh, there's a spooky
But
government.
the thing is, like,
That's not a technical argument. That's a.
It's real. It's a realistic argument.
even for the attacker in that case, there is like a marginal cost of getting to the chain themselves, right? So for example, in that case, maybe there's $5, maybe they get 1 cent out of it, right? And at that point, okay, they've ended the channel, we can move forward. But I guess like, I think you're trying to present it as something like black and white thing where like this stuff can never work because those scenarios arise, basically. And I think what we're saying is, okay, well, in that scenario, you can continue to use Lightning, you can accept some other varying security model, basically continue to get your coins. Like it doesn't just stop, it's not just over as that. But you're right, like there is a fundamental block size limit. That's just the way things are today, right? Like, and we can't get around that. But it doesn't mean that these systems won't ever work. Basically, it doesn't mean that you can't.
But what it means is they don't provide scaling of users; they only provide scaling of transactions.
It depends on your definitions. There are ways to make other systems, like he's saying, will continue to evolve.
Literally waving his hands.
Yeah, you're waving your hands too over here. Right? I mean, like, I don't know. You're not necessarily saying that, yes, you're saying things that we know, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that like this stuff can never work. That doesn't mean that like you can't actually move forward. Doesn't mean you can't have additional iterations. Doesn't mean that you can't actually have different trust gradients that users will opt into, basically. Otherwise, yes, you can do your web of trust thing. People trust John, basically, and they give you the money. You can make your own bank. Good luck with that.
It's like I can trust David Marcus and Spark Design and Lightning, or I can trust like my mom. You know what I mean? Like,
go ahead, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Loan
Like,
her some money and maybe she'll pay you back.
Mom, John.
But
No
in the
one's
end,
stopping you.
what matters when trusting is not the format. It matters who, with what, for how long, these kinds of things, right? It doesn't matter the format.
You don't need Bitcoin. You don't need
The
Bitcoin.
future isn't monolithic.
You don't need Bitcoin.
We'll have a diversity of subnetworks. Everyone has its own trust profile. Trust will continue to get minimized over time. And we're arbitraging on that diversity.
Yeah, I mean, people barely use Lightning, and now we're adding a bunch of other bullshit to it. In my opinion, this is all just like a self-fulfilling sort of way to get funded. Because there's not actual users.
Exactly like the web of trust bullshit that you pitch.
No one in this audience is a user that we just mentioned, right?
Guys, this was wonderful. We're out of time. You'll use Lightning and you'll be happy. Thank you. Cheers. Huge round of applause for the panelists.